December 16th, 2007, a Week 15 matchup between the Philadelphia Eagles and the Dallas Cowboys. It held the fate of countless fantasy football teams in the balance. Several star fantasy players were expected to rack up big points that day, but it would be a touchdown that did not happen that would go down in history, fantasy football history.
For 2 magical years, right, 2006, 2007, Brian Westbrook was fantasy royalty. 18 points a game in standard, 25 a game in PPR. He literally got teams into the playoffs himself in 2007.
That's why it was so hard to see what transpired that day. I mean, it wasn't fantasy, it was tragedy.
With 2:19 left in the game and the Eagles down at the Dallas 25, Westbrook broke free through the Cowboy defense and was set to coast into the end zone for a touchdown that would give him 20 fantasy points on the day and undoubtedly tipped the fantasy playoff outcomes for thousands across the globe. But then, out of nowhere, Westbrook just...
First and 10 at the 25-yard line. Westbrook takes a handoff. He's breaking through the line. He's about to trot to the end zone and win a lot of fantasy leagues. Wait, he went down. What the Philly cheesesteak just happened?
The guy just stopped. A couple yards short of 6 easy fantasy points in the playoffs, mind you. I mean, he just took a knee.
A friend of mine who had Brian on his team actually started weeping. Think about that. A grown man crying uncontrollably because of a lost touchdown in fantasy football.
The same thing happened in my league. My buddy Kyle just sobbed for like 20 straight minutes. He just bawled. It was awesome.
Deciding it was more prudent to run out the clock with a 4-point lead than kick it back to the Cowboys with a 2-score lead, Westbrook decided to take a knee. Definitely the smart football play, but also the worst fantasy football decision in history.
The next season, Westbrook's yardage dropped by almost half. And 2 years after that, he was out of the NFL completely. Look, I'm not saying that the fantasy gods cursed him forever for taking that knee, but...
Brian Westbrook was cursed by the fantasy gods that day. Don't ever take a knee in the fantasy playoffs. Fake championships are at stake here.
This has been Great Moments in Fantasy History.